Welcome to our final talk before lunch. It's always difficult to come in and get between lunch and people's lunch. But this is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot here. We're going to talk about the potential of AI-powered efficiency as industry experts, these guys, delve into the latest advancements, strategies, and best practices driving growth, innovation, and rapidly evolving SaaS in the rapidly evolving SaaS landscape. I'm going to be stepping into the moderator's chair in this one. We've got founder and CEO of Cladara, Cristina and the founder of Magical, Harpaul Sandy. So, guys, this is such a fascinating topic. In your view, how do you see AI shaping the future of SaaS startups, and what are the most promising trends you're observing and you're seeing in this space? And let's start with you, Cristina.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. We've just actually, for context, Cladara is a software management platform, and what we have is the largest data set in the world about SaaS purchases, renewals, and churn. And we just released the October report, and what it says there on what are the fastest adopted SaaS products, they are more than 50% on the top 20, more than 50% are AI powered. So it is happening that all your teams are adopting that software. And also when we look into what is actually that software that companies are buying, the majority are products to enhance your own productivity. So something to help you take the notes when you are in meetings, something to help you make better slides when you need to give a presentation. Mm-hmm. So people, something that we absolutely see supported by the data, right, is that people want to become always better at what they do, and that they find ways of bringing those tools into the organization. So what we are also starting to see is a lot of what we now call shadow AI in companies that then needs to be taken care of by, obviously, our IT teams.
Yeah, on our side, we have the privilege to be on over 100,000 SaaS apps. Magical automates soul-crushing mundane tasks, and it goes with you with your browser. And we've been able to see users really transform themselves with AI. So we're exceptionally bullish. We recommend any startup in SaaS to implement their AI and infuse it immediately. And I think there's three things that can really help right immediately when you think about the UX. You're able to now communicate with users in their own respective language and dialects. Number two, I think standardization is really key. So from our point of view, I think the trends are just really apparent. It's giving an exceptional leg up for startups, given that time is the only essence. And that's one thing that the big guys and gals, the big companies don't necessarily have, because they have to kind of go through a lot of the processes here. So I think right now, as we're going into a next generation of evolution in tools, it's game-changing for every SaaS company to use.
What are some of the challenges SaaS companies face in integrating AI into their work? Is it a challenge? Are we making a big deal out of that, or are there some real challenges?
Yeah, I think there's three big things on SaaS challenges that we felt, and our respective peers have also felt as well. Number one is standardization. You need your data to be clean in order to kind of really fine-tune models. So that's paramount, whether you're thinking about ML or AI. My last startup, we got acquired by LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a huge amount of data sets, and it was really messy if it wasn't standardized. Number two, I think it's really about the UX paradigm. These models can take easily a minute or 2 minutes, and today's users want everything instantly. So you really have to kind of conform to the user and educate them and give them feedback loops. And I think the third one is security and privacy. That's just very paramount when it comes to your users and customers, because they see the good and they see the horror stories on social, so they can see that, do I really trust this company in harnessing my data and then giving it to a model that may hallucinate or may give it to someone else?
Yes, I agree with many of the points that he's mentioned there. And I think for us, trust is the key one, right? The key challenge. And not only for our customers, but even internally. Sometimes employees say, oh, but we cannot trust it. This is not reliable. And we want to make sure that we provide reliable information, which is absolutely true.
Right.
Also, we are a financial product, right? So we need to make sure that the information that we show our customers is accurate. And therefore is, well, what can we do to mitigate some of those concerns, whether they are internal or external? And for us, the key thing there is, well, for some of that critical information, we make sure that there is a human in the loop, double checking before it actually makes it into the customer. But also, we make sure that whenever there is data that's being generated by AI, that we very clearly label it in the product so customers actually know it. And if something we have today is that customers are ready for this technology and they want the benefit that comes from it, so they're also willing to tell you this was useful, this was not useful, this was accurate, this was not accurate. So we also collaborate in some way with our customers to help us see, okay, how happy are they using that type of data and relying on that data.
Okay. How can how should SaaS startups navigate sort of the complex landscape in terms of data privacy, ethical considerations around AI, right? Because you've got to feed AI a lot of data, and we were having a conversation yesterday about that, right? How do you address those security concerns around that?
Yeah, so in our case, we adopted the strategy internally of we want to make sure that everyone in the company is aware of the risks of using those models and using those products. So we started with training to our employees very early on, and also on basically saying which type of data, of all the data that we hold, is sensitive, and which type of data is something data that you can use to test and to try things. And then we encourage everybody to play with that data internally and basically create some Slack channels with some bots that people created themselves even. We encourage them to do all that. And then see the benefits and the limitations and when something unexpected happen. But I think it all starts with giving the company the guidelines and the guide rails and putting your policies in place. Because if you give sensitive data to a model that will then be using that to train itself, that's definitely not a good outcome at all. And if you give data which is part of your competitive advantage, that can destroy you as a business, right? Because then all that data is out there. So really sharing that with your company is, I would say, in our case, the most important thing that we've done.
So have good, strong SOPs, have good, strong rules in
Exactly.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and training too, maybe.
Exactly, and especially because you don't want people to get paralyzed because, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this because maybe I'll put data there that is something that then will damage the company and they will fire me. I don't know, right? People can think all sorts of things. So just make it very clear so people feel safe experimenting.
Yeah, I think guardrails, guidelines make sense as well. I think from a tactical perspective, one thing that we did is if there is sensitive data, we go to local models versus or conversely, we first foolproof. So, AI can hallucinate, AI can also leak data as well. So whenever we do something internally, we're going to look to figure out how do we kind of reverse engineer and hack this itself, such that our data doesn't necessarily go through it. We have a great relationship with OpenAI, and we have insurance that they don't actually train on our data as well. So if you can get that is a tactical step to ensure that your data is being protected. But I ultimately think you have to bring your customers on your journey, especially when you're introducing AI. We've lost customers when we introduced AI because they similar to social media or email back in the day in those transformative industry leaps. From a technology point of view, you're going to have to educate them on the benefits and potentially the drawbacks and what you're going to do to mitigate those drawbacks itself. So yeah, we lost customers, but we also gained a whole bunch of customers as well because they were super excited about our features and the premium stuff that we were able to do. So I think it's really about like coming back to like safeguarding yourself, try to reverse engineer to see how you can potentially limit that, do server stuff versus just uploading files. And then lastly, I would say just like take your customers on that journey and see how they feel and act on that.
Is there any way to use AI in SaaS products that enhances the customer experience, even maybe the employee experience? Can you guys talk about your experience there and what you've seen? You said you had customers, you just said it was a great segue.
Yeah.
You had customers that were excited about it.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll go for that. I think first and foremost, it's a technology that allows people to interact in their natural language. I mean, that's what the NLP stands for. So whether you're diversifying and you have multiple languages, you have different ways, like, because you might say select something, I might say click something. It doesn't really matter how they interpret it. There's a model there that's ultimately conforming to say this is what I think the user is doing versus what we've done before. So it's a new modality, right? We did from click keyboard to touching something. Now we're interacting with something. So I think that experience is really great. And then tactically, I think if you have analytics, being able to give a model analytics and give your users the ability to go from a line graph to a bar graph, like you don't have to build any of that stuff anymore. So that's a really great agent to just ultimately allow people to do that. And then third, I would say predictive analytics and recommendations. You're able to personalize now to the nth degree. So we've been doing that in our marketing emails. We've been doing that in our actual application. And as a result, we've been able to see better activation and retention rates throughout the board. So I would say those are the three things that I've seen firsthand. Curious what Cristina says.
Yeah, very, very similar in some way, right? So we generate with our product a lot of data, and until now, our product managers were talking to all our customers to try to understand, okay, what are those charts, dashboards that will bring value to our customers. And now all of a sudden we don't need to go out there and do all that piece of work, but what we need to do is just basically give them the ability to ask whatever they want, right? And that now it's possible, and this is great because what we do realize is, especially as you have more and more customers, is that everybody wants slightly different. Every business is run in a slightly different way, and this really gives you that power to truly personalize the experience to each customer for what they need. And then internally, so we've started using a lot of it in the marketing team for helping with the content creation, helping with image generation for blog posts or for the website. So all those things are things that we can leverage that makes things happen then much faster within the company, because you don't need to maybe then rely on consultants that are outside of the organization.
We touched on it a few minutes ago, and I want to get back to it. SaaS companies that are trying to scale and dealing with the security around AI, and they want to scale AI. What are some security SOPs, some things that you recommend? We touched on it briefly. Do you guys have any concrete recommendations for companies around security? Any thoughts? Any recommendations?
For us, again, I think the most important thing is don't put your data where you don't want it. I think for me that would be the most important thing. And then around the cost as well. So we have very mindful engineers, thankfully. Mm-hmm. So when we started integrating with OpenAI, they were like, Cristina, do you realize that if something goes wrong here, we can create a huge bill for you? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure you'll be mindful on how we can mitigate that. Those things are important, especially for companies at early stages that are testing, because you don't want to drain your resources for a mistake. So just make sure that obviously you take that into consideration and that your engineers are mindful there.
Yeah, on my side, I would say it's paramount to bring your customers to the journey itself. If you don't bring your customers to the journey, they're going to naturally kind of like say, hey, like my data now is in this third-party system or sub-processor. So I think first of all, like terms of service, DPAs, privacy policy, update that, tell everyone. But I think tactically as well, to safeguard your data, like always go through the back end, meaning do server requests now versus just like giving all the raw data. It helps mitigate that. And you can also do safe like protections on your back end as well in the event that it's requesting something, like user requests all your data, you're able to kind of like revoke those types of things itself. And I ultimately think it's a decision that you might need to do, right? You have to say, okay, I have only a certain amount of time, I have only a certain amount of resources, I'm going after these big players in this industry, am I for or against AI, and take your stance. We took the stance of going all in AI, so that as a result, our security postures have changed significantly in terms of like using the data to do recommendations and all that stuff as well. But so I would say, like, if you're going to go all in on AI, embrace it, and then just use the respective back-end calls. Be able to continually iterate. That's the constant thing about this.
Are there any ethical recommendations for you guys, or concerns that you guys have around integrating AI in a SaaS company? Anything that people should worry about, think about, plan for? Ethical concerns, anything that you're thinking of now, that you're working on?
Yeah, I think there's like a couple ethical concerns. Like first off, like our mission is to automate slow crushing mundane tasks that people have. So our users sometimes ask themselves, is AI going to replace us? And that's an ethical concern that we have to deal with our respective end users and our champions and buyers. And for us, we're trying to look to empower them. So I think it's really about the narrative and the go-to-market messaging of saying, what stance are you playing? Are you replacing a customer support agent? Are you enhancing them, right? Are you giving them an Iron Man woman suit, or are you going to make them a robot? We've said, okay, we're gonna really kind of augment that person versus like enhancing and automating them. That's one ethic aspect itself. And then I think it ultimately comes to data privacy as well. And how you kind of treat that data, how you could potentially anonymize that data, so it's not necessarily Cristina and Harpaul, or that's going into a model. It's going to be a user from the specific function, as an example, that can backtrack in, and you're able to then delineate and show that to your customer.
Yeah, and for us, not to repeat myself with what you just said there, right? So because we have some financial products in our product, we need to always make sure, and we've not deployed that yet, and it's something that we are thinking about, but how not to introduce biases into that when we use AI to take decisions around financial products and financial, maybe limits that you may be able to get. So this is something that we are thinking of, okay, how we ensure that, because obviously in the US you cannot do that, right, when you are offering financial products to people, and how can we control that if we use AI? So that is something that we are thinking about.
Great. So last question, or last two questions. First one is, talk about some success stories. I mean, you both have some history here now. You've been working in this for a little bit. Talk about some success stories integrating AI into your SaaS organizations.
Yes, and am I allowed to share a new product release that we are doing today?
Sure.
Yes, okay, so...
Make the announcement.
Thank you. So, well, I'm very excited to announce that we're releasing a new product today, which is the first SaaS procurement co-pilot powered by AI, which will enable everyone in the organization to be a procurement expert. And because we have all this data that enables us to see who is using the software within your organization, how much are you paying, and we are able to then bring benchmarks to your hands, basically, and give you the talking points that are relevant for you that will facilitate that discussion with the vendor, so you actually get a fair price and a fair basically price for your products and seats that you are paying for. And we released this today, so very excited that we already have a lot of customers that are adopting it, and it's for anyone that uses our product, it's for free. So it's great moment for a lot of our customers today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's exciting. I don't have a product release announcement today, but one of the things I can tell is internal and external. So external, we help 42,000 companies. One of them is Deal.com, the largest payroll and fastest growing SaaS startup in history. They saved they've done over 1.5 million tasks that have been automated on our platform over the last 12 months, which has saved them basically a day a week for their employees, which is great efficiencies through AI and automation. And internally, what we've done is we've also built our own internal models, like super practical thing that you all can do, which is somewhat controversy, is we gave OpenAI, trained its model on our entire code base, which in one way is like they have our entire IP, but at the same time we have safeguarded it in a way. But that has allowed us to do is two tactical things for our engineers. Number one, it's they have instant merge request reviews. You know, if you have engineers kind of like having to talk to one another and do their requests and reviews, we have an instant analysis from OpenAI and GPT that ultimately says this is the inefficiencies, here are the potential race conditions, and then they also agnostically look at our entire code base for vulnerabilities. That saved about 30% of our engineering time. So effectively, we're getting 30% more throughput from our engineers because of that. So those are just an internal and external benefit that I'm able to share.
That's fantastic, and really can change the game in so many ways, right? So the last question I want you guys to answer, and I want you to give the audience your sort of takeaways about, you know, OpenAI or AI and SaaS, and just what your outlook is, where you think this is going. We've got about a minute each, so I'll start with you, Cristina. But just give us your view on where this is going and what you're excited about here.
Yeah. So what I'll say is it's already here, right? And whether we like it or not, because, you know, I always talk from the perspective that people love using AI, but there are many people out there that are still a bit skeptical, and that's a reality. So what I would say is embrace it, right? It's happening, and get comfortable with it, and help your teams get comfortable with it. Because, and even for a lot of the companies that are here that are very young, like there is the opportunity to launch very, very powerful products much faster than ever before. And for me, that is so exciting to see what's going to come.
Do you think, one question, follow-up question for you, do you think that, I mean, so you're excited?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that companies will be left behind if they don't embrace it?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you have an AI assistant by your side every single day if you can, right? That helps you synthesize things that come, that helps you, write those notes from your meetings, and you don't need to do it yourself. You can always curate it, right? Like you would do with an analyst or an intern, or even a chief of staff. I think it's AI has the power to be all those things for you just there. So I think it's super, super exciting.
Thank you.
I would just say go full on it. Similar to Cristina, I think like AI is going to eat SaaS and it's going to be part of it. So if you don't embrace it, you're going to be left behind. I was a bootstrap company in my last startup. This one, it's venture funded. Irrespective, I would still put at least like 40% of my engineering time and my product development time and design time on it, and iterate. If you don't know where to start, just start with something basic like creating like what song to recommend for me, and just start playing with the GPTs and the assistants itself, and I think you'll start to get the creativity there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, guys.